The first season of Tokyo Revengers just completed, and I definitely have some thoughts, so let's talk about it. Hey everyone, so I just saw the final episode to season 1 of Tokyo Revengers, and it was one of the anime series that made my summer top 10 list. The series has a lot of good qualities about it so far, but also some glaring ones that I can't simply ignore. So I definitely have mixed feelings about the entire season, so let's break it down. So the big glaring one for me that I simply couldn't ignore was how bad the animation was at times. You could tell they were cutting a lot of corners to meet the 24 episode requirement, and it really showed. The animation looked really stiff and body proportions would look rushed and not proportioned correctly. They spent a lot of time making as little movement as possible, and when the character did move, the in-between frames were lacking or just generally looked like they were using less than I'm normally used to seeing in animation. Scenes where the characters were walking also would be very noticeable, and at times just didn't feel like they were in the world that was created around them, and almost felt like they were kind of floating in the scene. Here's an example of what I mean. When you see the character's proportions are all wrong, as he's walking away from the scene, it makes him look like he's incredibly short and his pants are way too wide. Just another example, the way the camera pans and zooms in feels incredibly unnatural and very much an afterthought done in post when editing. You can tell by the style of the zoom as it's just moving the image around and not doing a proper pan shot. Now, you might be thinking that I'm being overly critical, and that's fair, but it's something I wanted to point out because it was something I consistently noticed. It could just be simply the fact that I put a lot of focus on filming and editing, so things like this bother me more than the average person. Now, in saying this, it doesn't ruin the anime, but it has to be mentioned, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's move on to the actual story. I don't need to waste too much time, as I'm sure most of you have seen it, but quickly, let me just mention that Takemichi is the main protagonist in this series. He's, for all intents and purposes, a loser, and has nothing going for him. But he finds out the only girl he has ever loved, Hinata, was killed by the Tokyo Manji Gang, and not long after, he gets pushed over onto the tracks by a herd of people. As an oncoming train approaches, he thinks he's about to die, but he then opens his eyes and he's somehow gone back in time by 12 years, and he's in high school again. So this is what jumpstarts the entire series as Takemichi meets Hinata's brother Naoto and tells him he will die on July 1st, 2017, along with his sister Hinata, and to remember the date so he can save himself and his sister. The overall story is what hooks you. The concept of the main character essentially not having anything special about them, like he's not strong, he isn't a natural born leader, and essentially the very definition of a wimp, or a loser. Yet despite all of this, he has to overcome these qualities to save the one thing that he loves. A lot of the qualities from Tokyo Revengers reminds me of Steins Gate. We have Okabe, he makes changes in the past and hopes to see if things have changed in the future. And we essentially get the same concept here, where Takemichi, when he completes his task in the past, then he goes back to the future to see if he's made any progress in the present and hopes to get the outcome he's looking for. Alright, this is a spoiler warning. From this point forward, I will have to mention spoilers in order to truly discuss the season, so I highly recommend checking out Tokyo Revengers, but for the rest of you, let's deep dive right now. So the main part I wanted to discuss is all the intertwining stories from all the characters and how all of these decisions essentially cause a butterfly effect, and Naoto and Takemichi from the future have to figure out what changes need to be made in hopes it can undo a series of events to ultimately prevent the death of Hinata. It was definitely toward the end of the series, around episode 20 I believe, when Takemichi finally convinces Draken and Majiro to not split and remain friends as they were having disagreements, and by doing so Takemichi saved Draken's life. But as Takemichi heads back to the present time, he finally sees that Hinata is in fact still alive. Takemichi and Hinata head out on a date, and it's an awkward one at that. But this is where we are left with a Mayuri moment, and Takemichi heads to the bathroom, and when he comes back, Hinata was crushed by a car behind her with an object right through her stomach. Truly traumatizing stuff, as Takemichi had to watch her die, but this only furthers his resolve as he heads back to the past to make changes once again. Kisaki seems to be the brains behind all of this, as he is responsible for the death of Hinata, and he quickly climbs the ranks of Tomen and is going to be a huge problem for Takemichi moving forward.
喧嘩ばかりしちゃう。先週もつまらないことで喧嘩したばかりじゃない。
I'm loving all the characters so far. I think Ken, aka Draken, has the coolest design by far with that black jumpsuit, or also known as the Tomen Toppoku. And the gold kanji symbols looks badass along with the dragon tattoo. Draken definitely has all the necessary qualities to be a leader, and him being second in command is simply because Manjiro created the gang. But that's not to take anything away from Manjiro, because he has a lot of interesting quirks as well. They complement one another really well. Draken is the calm, cool, collected type, while Manjiro is the more hot-headed, stubborn, act first kind, but both of them have very kind hearts, which is why Takemichi resonates with them so well. I want to know though, who is the character that resonates the most with you, and who do you think has the coolest design? Leave a comment below. Personally, I think Takemichi is the least interesting character in his own story, and I think Draken is one that resonates with me the most. He's definitely my favorite character in the series so far.
殴られるのは覚悟しろ。でもひるむな。
Despite some of the questionable animation, I'm definitely enjoying the anime. I do find some of the episodes drag on, and they could really tighten the story to move things along quicker. I can't help but feel they should do 13 episodes instead of 24, but in saying that, Tokyo Revengers has a deep intertwined story that I'm enjoying more and more as the story progresses. I'm loving the cliffhanger that we are left with for season 1. It's really tempting me to jump into the manga to see what happens, but I will hold off and simply wait for season 2 and see where things go moving forward. Overall, I wouldn't pretend it's one of my favorite series of all time, and it definitely has questionable moments, but overall, it's a solid watch for sure. And anyone looking for something with a deep story and loves time travel, then this one is definitely for you. I want to know though, if you've watched season 1, how did you feel about it? Are you enjoying it? Are you excited for season 2? Let me know in the comments. All right, I'm working on another video for My Hero Academia because the season ends next week, so look out for that video as well. So if you enjoyed this, consider subscribing, hitting the like button is always a huge help, and click the bell to be notified when I drop that next video. Thank you again, everyone. All your support and comments really help motivate me to keep going, and I'm working hard to keep growing this channel, so thank you. That's it for this one though. See you in the next video.